If you're interested in living in or traveling in Serbia or Bulgaria, but you only really have time for one country and you want to know how similar and different these two countries are, then I'm going to fill you in with this video. But first, if you are brand new here, I'm an American girl named Wando. I've had an obsessive love for traveling in the Balkans and Southeastern Europe since 2014. I started working remotely from Serbia, living in Serbia from 2017, and for the past couple of years, I've just been living that digital nomad life, I guess you can say. So if you are planning a trip to the Balkans, Southeastern Europe, or you're planning on moving here too, then I would subscribe to this channel because I make all my videos about this part of the world. Okay, so over the years, I've heard so many people, including locals of Serbia and Bulgaria, describe these two countries as being quite similar. But as someone who spent time living in both countries, I think that Serbia and Bulgaria are very different. So in this video, I wanted to explain differences between Serbia and Bulgaria. Okay, let's start with society / culture. So both of these countries are southeastern Slavic countries. They are both predominantly Christian Orthodox countries. They are both family-oriented, close-knit countries with lots of traditions. They both went through centuries of Ottoman Empire rule, which you'll see remnants of to this day in the appearances of people, in old stone streets, in words in their languages. They're also both quite homogenous countries, but I will say that I do think that Bulgaria has a little bit more of an ethnic and cultural mix in their population. So besides ethnic Bulgarians, there's also a significant population of Roma people, Turkish people, Russians, and Armenians. That's so interesting. And this population is very much baked, marinated into the society, but they're both quite homogenous. Next, I want to talk about what I am calling the societal vibe. But when it comes to the vibe of the country, I always like to say that contrary to the stereotype people might have about Serbia, it has more of a Mediterranean kind of flair. The people are very gregarious, open, curious, excited, passionate. I think Serbia is such a great country if you're a solo traveler like me, because it's just one of those countries where people just find you. If you have trouble being social, they just pick you up. They invite you along. People are just always celebrating something, anything. It's just exciting. I do think that Bulgaria is a little bit more subdued and just kind of calm. And yes, does Bulgaria have those Southeastern Europe traditions and people always celebrating? Of course. I just think that the society is a little bit more calm and people aren't as gregarious. Let's talk about language. Now, something that these two countries do have in common is they both use the Cyrillic alphabet. Serbia, however, uses Cyrillic and Latin alphabet, so you can survive in Serbia without learning the Cyrillic alphabet. Whereas in Bulgaria, everything is in the Cyrillic alphabet. Every website, food delivery websites, their version of Uber, everything's in Cyrillic alphabet. So it's you should really learn it. The unique thing about Serbian language is that Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian and Herzegovinian, and Montenegrin are all the same language. They're just different dialects of the same language. Bulgarian, however, is a very different language. So if you take a Serbian class and you go to Montenegro, you can speak with Montenegrin people. Dobar dan, dobar dan. Super! Danas je moj rođendan! If you take Croatian classes, you can go to Serbia and Serbian people will understand you.
Rakija, kakva je? Travarica. Iz Makarske.
From Makarska.
Od našega.
Yeah, you'll be speaking in a slightly different dialect. Some sentence structures will be different. Some vocabulary words will be different. That's a really good advantage of that language. If you learn Bulgarian and you go to Croatia or you go to Montenegro and you try to speak Bulgarian, they're not going to understand you. Also, if you learn Serbian or Croatian, Montenegrin, whatever, and then you go to Bulgaria, people won't understand you. So if learning language and using it in your travels for traveling and getting around and communicating, that's something to keep in mind. That also brings me to another point, language barrier. Everyone in Serbia knows English, everyone. So if you don't know any of the language, you can get by. In Bulgaria, a lot of people do not know English. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that. It's just interesting. It's important to know. So it's really good to learn some Bulgarian and practice that Cyrillic alphabet. Okay, so now let's talk about attractions, traveling, and excursions. So with Bulgaria, Bulgaria has two really unique things that I don't think a lot of people associate with Southeastern Europe. One is epic ancient Roman sites, and two is the sea. Bulgaria is on the Black Sea on the eastern coast of the country, and I actually lived in Burgas, Bulgaria for almost a month, and it was just such an amazing experience. Whereas like Serbia is a very landlocked country, so you know it can't really offer the seaside. But if you're someone who wants to live in a country where you can have like that Southeastern Europe Slavic language experience, but you also want the sea, like that's such an amazing thing that Bulgaria offers. I also think Bulgaria is great because it has a lot of really unique Roman sites. Probably the most famous being the amphitheater in Plovdiv. I also lived in Plovdiv just for a couple of weeks, but it's a very, very beautiful town. With Serbia, Serbia is a landlocked country, so of course it's not gonna have the sea. Of course, Serbia still has so much natural beauty, so many beautiful mountains. I love Eastern Serbia for the Danube gorge that it has. I have a separate video about that. But I think Bulgaria just has more of those kind of epic sight experiences, plus it has the sea. Both of them though have amazing, amazing, amazing fortresses. Food. I think the cuisines of both of these countries are quite similar. Lots of meats, lots of sausages. People love getting the pljeskavica and the kobasica. I do think where Serbia and Bulgaria differ is, again, Bulgaria is a seaside country, so it has way better seafood scene. So interestingly, the next thing I want to talk about is convenience of living and security. I don't know how to summarize what I'm gonna talk about now. Serbia, of course, is not in the EU. It's not in the Schengen zone, neither is Bulgaria. It was denied access, but it is in the EU. But the reason I mention this is because I think Serbia is probably the most relaxed country in the world when it comes to things like staying in the country for long periods without like an official visa or even obtaining a short-term visa. It's just such a relaxed country with a lot of those kind of bureaucratic things. Whereas Bulgaria, I think because it's in the EU, and I think because there's a lot of kind of counter-terrorism measures, Western Europe has its eye on Bulgaria for those reasons. I do think that part of Bulgaria's infrastructure and some of their kind of security measures are way more rigid and serious than in Serbia. I would carry your passport with you at all times because you just never know when you're gonna have to show it for some reason. Like if you're going to a casino, for example, to watch football and whatever, play some games. Like any country in Southeastern Europe, Croatia, Serbia, Macedonia, you can just like walk into the casino. In Bulgaria, you just never know if you like have to show your passport. Oh, another example is even things just going on the website to top up your credit for your phone SIM card. There's extra security measures to do that. I don't think you can top up your SIM card online if it's a prepaid phone. That's just not even a thing in Serbia or Croatia or Montenegro. So just you'll notice things like that where the country is a little bit more rigid around certain things. Okay, so prices. This is where both of these countries are really quite similar. They follow what every country in the world follows pretty much, which is things are more expensive in the bigger city and things are way cheaper in the smaller cities. So in smaller cities, if you go out for lunch or dinner and you also buy drinks, you can probably in most days and nights spend about $10 to $15. But in the bigger cities, like Belgrade, like Sofia, you could probably add another $10 to that. I also think another similarity is that because of the war in Ukraine, because of the Russian mobilization, both countries started receiving a lot more Russian citizens. So that affected the prices in mainly the bigger cities. It's affected the whole country for both countries, but I feel like for Belgrade and Sofia, the prices went up in both of those cities, and the price for accommodation got more expensive in both cities. But I think because Bulgaria has always had a more significant Russian population than Serbia, like Serbia has Russians, but the Russian population in Bulgaria has always been a little bit more baked into the society. I do think the rise in prices in Serbia and Belgrade in particularly was a little bit more extreme. So that's pretty much what I got for this video. Those are pretty much the main differences between Serbia and Bulgaria that I think are quite noticeable, that maybe you want to take into consideration if you're planning a trip to Southeastern Europe and maybe you don't have time to visit both countries, or maybe you're trying to choose which one you want to live in, if that's something you're considering. Hopefully this video helped shed some light on some of those questions you maybe had to help you make some of those decisions. And anyone, please feel free to comment anything that you think I missed if you're from one of these countries, or maybe you're an expat like me. So I will see you guys in the next video. I appreciate your time so much.